So, Bubble. When we open up Bubble, we come to this screen. This is going to be an enter blank screen here. We've already clicked created what kind of app we want to make. Very simple. We brought up a blank one, right? So, now what I want to do is I want to create a input, right? I want to take the name and the email address of people who are coming to an event. I want to track what event they went to, how I got their information, so that I can see throughout the year what events are really worth my time for gathering the gathering participants and seeing how many emails I'm getting, so I can see where I'm really getting the most spend for when I'm going to these events and marketing my company or marketing my clients' companies, so I can optimize for the next round of these events that I'm going to go to. And you can apply this same type of logic to tracking anything you want over time and pulling different data into it. So we're going to look at adding 3 fields now. Later on, we can go back, we can add different things, we can add dates, you can add all kinds of stuff to this that you can pull data on. Any field that you want to put in here, we're going to work on how to actually make those things you can pull reports on. So I'm going to make a series of inputs. I push input down here from the input form, and I'll draw it there. I need 3 of these because I'm going to have 3 text inputs. That came up a little bit small, but I can fix that super easy right here. It's really nice Bubble as it will actually draw little lines down that'll line stuff back up when you make a oopsie. I just did. Very easy, right? So we want this one to be email. So I'll put that in the placeholder here. And the text type right here for this, I want to do email because it's going to be an email. Here, I will just do a last name. And here I will do first name. Great. So I've got some inputs, but I also want to track the events that we're going to, right? The events that people are coming in from. So I want to have it set. So I know I got this person I want to track, so I need a drop-down. Okay, so I create this drop-down, I put that here. But now my drop-down needs its own data. So I'm just going to leave this as static choices. Later, we're going to look at how you can make dynamic choices and how we can have it set so that you can actually update what would be in this list based on where you plan on going in the next year. But for now, let's take a look at just creating static choices. So do location 1, location 2, maybe we just want to call one Comic-Con, right? And what we get here is the ability to add these choices. So I've added these 3 in, and because that's the main thing I want to track is where I'm getting the most bang for my buck on these, I want to put in my input should not be empty right here. Right? That means when we try to log this form, no one's going to be able to enter it without clicking that, right? And this can be useful in a variety of ways. So say you have a form on your site where someone comes in and they enter information and you want to track how they heard of you. So then they try to enter without filling out this one, it prompts them to do it. You have managers that are filling out forms for tracking something important at your company. They're trying to log information without actually filling in this box. They can't log that info, right? So maybe you have forms that aren't being filled out correctly. You can make it so your forms are now required to have certain fields entered, and your managers can't miss them because now instead of it being on paper and people just leaving gaps out, you have people going in doing it digitally. They're required to fill these fields just to log that it happened. Great. So do a quick preview here. In this preview, it's just a blank page with enter information, right? So I enter information here, here, here. That's going to show up red. Why? It's not an email address. It needs to have an @ symbol and then something, and then like a .com, right? So now it would tell me that is an email address, right? So things like that are very useful inside of Bubble for users. And then I can track the location, right? But this isn't doing anything yet. Right now, I'm just saying I have a name, a first name, a last name, I have an email address, I have a location. All I've done is kind of enter data, but I haven't saved it, right? I haven't created something on a data level for the system to track. So let's go back. Let's make it create something. So let's have it create a thing. So things inside a bubble are basically, think of it like a group of data, or think of it like a box. So you have a box, right? This box is going to be whatever data you want to have that's all associated to one object. That's what that box is. So this box for this one is going to be, for me, I'm going to call it a prospect. So I'm going to click on the save button, right? Because right now this button, if I clicked it, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything because we haven't told it to do anything. So if I click on start edit workflow, and then I click on click here to add action, because we want to make sure I'm on the button. The save button is clicked. When I go to data and things, I want to create a new thing. What this does is it basically gives me the box I'm going to put my data in. And I want to make a prospect. So I had already created that in this database, but if you want to make a new one, say I want to type in prospect 2 or new client. So I'll create new client, right? And I'll click that and I'll push enter and then it'll pop up, right? So I have a new client. It doesn't know what to do with it. It just knows there are things that exist inside a bubble called a new client because I created it. Great. Now, I can create a new field for it, but I have no fields. Why? I haven't actually given this thing any properties yet, but I can. I can click create new field. I can create first name, text. I can create another one, last name, make it text. I can create email, address, text. Great. And what's going to happen here is now I have places to put data inside my box. So inside my box, I basically just have a series of compartments. And each one of these compartments is something where I can put and output data. So right now I have first name, last name, email address. But when you're thinking about what you want to build, you want to think about, I want to make an app that does X, Y, and Z. And X, Y, and Z should have these specific parts that I'm tracking. And each one of these parts has all of these attributes, right? And I like to visualize that as a box with a series of compartments inside that I'm kind of sliding data in. Kind of like when you think of like old movies you watch where they find like a box that has ancient scrolls that are all each sectioned off, and the adventurer reaches in, he pulls one out and it has a little bit of information on it, he puts it away, but it's all organized, right? So I want to bring in the first name. Well, how does it know what to get for that, right? I have an input called first name and I have first name here, but it doesn't know that's what I want there. So I have to tell it. So I have to click first name is going to equal my input first name's value. My last name is going to equal my input last name's value. My email is going to equal my input email value. Great. And it's that simple. So whenever I want to create a new client, it's going to go in and it's going to say this person, it'll be this person, this first name, this last name, this email. But I also have a drop down, right? I created that drop down. So let's create a new field just for that location. This is going to be where I got this information from. This will be text again. And let's do drop down A. Great. So drop down A's value is going to be the location that's going to log here. And what's actually really cool is, and we'll talk about how to do this later, once I've created a thing, I can make changes to it. So I don't have to always create something new. I can create something where I would pull up data from a thing, be able to change the data in that thing, and then save it, and it would still be that thing, right? And that's really powerful if you're doing something where, like say you build your own CRM, and you have customers you want to update phone numbers without updating all the other data or having to re-enter all of it. You're easily able to do that. So now what happens is if I hit preview, I'm going to save that information, but it's just going to sit there because we haven't told it to ever get rid of it. And I'll show you what I mean. So if I click preview, Johnny, John at comic.com, and it was at Comic-Con. I click save. It's saving, right? I'm not actually going to push a bunch of times. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about here. So basically, I just gave the ability to create a whole bunch of the same thing all over and over again because I'm not actually undoing any of this data, right? I'm not actually saying get rid of any of this or reset the relevant inputs. It just sits there. So if I'm the user, I don't know if this is actually doing something. You want to remember that when we're building. So next thing I want to do is it even recommends the next thing. That's what I love about Bubble. It does a lot of recommendations that help you, and it gives you that little reference thing right over here when you hover on stuff. So if I click that, it'll show me an idea of what that actually does for me. So if I click on that, it'll take me to the page on Bubble that tells me what reset relevant inputs does, which is hugely powerful when you're trying to figure something out. It recommends something to you and you're not even sure if you're on the right path and you're troubleshooting. You read about what it does. It's a quick paragraph. It tells you something, and usually it gets you on the right path to accomplishing your goal. So I want to reset my relevant inputs, and then I want to see what that looks like. But first, I'm going to show you why you need to reset your relevant inputs. When I click on data over here, this little stack that looks kind of like a server, right? So I can see that inside of my company right now, I have it set up where I can create prospects from what I had done earlier in it and create new clients, which is the one we created together. And I have users, right? So users are like me. I would be a user. I would go in, for me to be able to log into the system and utilize it, I would have to be designated as a user. But if I click on app data and I click on new clients, whoa, we created a whole bunch of the same guy over and over again because we weren't resetting the data, right? We weren't telling it that we did it. So if I'm a user and I go in and I try to log something, I might click a whole bunch of times and think, why isn't this working? Because we didn't reset the inputs. Well, I could go in and I could easily just delete all of these, which I'm not going to do because I want to actually have a good amount of data in it for stuff we're going to pull later. And this is a good time to just dump stuff in from Comic-Con. But going back to here, I'll go preview my page. Now, let's take a look here. So let's do location 2 this time. Let's do linlinda@page.com and save. It reset all of it. So I know it got entered as a user. Wonderful. But where does it go? And how do I visualize that? Maybe I want to see something. We could do that. So go back to here. Just go right back. You can actually close out of that one. And what we want to do is we want to take a look at repeating groups, right? So let's grab that and let's draw a repeating group. I never worry about this red line there because it'll always drop down after I've drawn what I want to do. Oh. There we go. See? Move this around a little bit. The box with the red box is like the space you're working in. That'll move with you as you move objects up and down. So basically it's not making a huge gap at the bottom of your page, but that's not data we have to worry about yet. Anyway, so let's create a repeating group. Double click on it. Make sure we have this repeating group A open because we haven't named it anything yet. So it's defaulting to repeating group A. And type of content here, right? So all kinds of content it can do normally inside of the system. The two things that I created so far are a prospect and a new client. So I want to click on new client because that's what I'm working with in this tutorial. So I click on new client and then I want a data source. So this is where we say, okay, everything that's in here is going to be a new client, but how are we going to find the new clients that we want? So I would do a search for my new clients, and that would be enough for this simply because we just want to grab all of the new clients that we have ever put into our database. But you could easily go in here and you could say, I want to do it by location, and I want the location to equal whatever value you wanted. Or you could even do something where you have the location equals drop down A's value. And what that would do is that would give me the ability to have the repeating group here only show me what I put into the drop down A. So I'm actually going to show you that one in just a moment here, but for now, let's just do a new client. Great. Now we don't know, it's not going to show anything. It doesn't know what to show. All it knows is new client data is going to be in here, but we haven't put anything on these lines, so we haven't told it to put things places. So we want to grab our text, right? So once you hover over here, you see how the line turns red? That gives you the ability to click. So you click, and it will add it to it. See how it repeats, edit me, edit me, edit me, edit me? That means whatever I put here will go on to all of them. And because it's a repeating group, it's going to look for a group of these objects, and it's going to give you the returned values in a series that you can scroll through to look at the data. So I want to do insert dynamic text. This will give me allow me to pull different text in each individual one. Now I want to, for this, pull the repeating group new clients. Oops. So what I want to do is I want to click here, go to current cells new client, and then I want to grab the thing I want, right? So I want their first name. Right? I can make this box just a little bit smaller. Great. And then I want to do another text box right there that I should have drawn a little bigger to begin with, but let's go there. And then I want this one to be another dynamic text. I want the current cells, new client. So that what that means is basically see how each one of these is that horizontal row. That just basically means everything in that row has data from the same entry, right? So I would click this cell's new clients, last name, and I'm going to show you what that ends up with in a second here, because we're pulling all that data. Then I want to put, because I'm interested, I want text to show the location. So let's do the dynamic text. Why isn't that showing up? Insert dynamic text. Ah, it lets me click on stuff. Okay, so as you can see, I have this box here, but I don't have a series there. And that means that unlike these two, I'm not in the repeating group right now. I'm just kind of hovering over the repeating group, right? So like I can click this repeating group, everything in it moves, but this edit me right here isn't moving. That means it's not in it. So when I go back here, I want to make sure I'm in these lines. See, now when I put it there, it shows up right in line with the other ones. I've got it. I lowered the size of the box. It lines up well, but it shows up on all of these. And you want to make sure you're doing that, because otherwise you'll have what I just had where I went in and I couldn't actually get it to show me the current cells, right? So when I click here and I do insert dynamic text, now it pops up with current cells new client, which gives me exactly what I want, location. Perfect. So now I'm going to click preview, and we're going to be able to see all of these in repeated order. Great. So most of these are going to be Johnny, because we did so many of him that were from Comic-Con. If we scroll down, it's just going to keep going until we get back to Lynn, location 2. But what if I want to view that a little better, right? What if I want to be able to view just people at certain ones really quickly at a glance? So let's go back here. Because this data is the same as this, I'm actually going to right click and I'm just going to copy and paste that one. Oops. Did not work. Click there. There. Great. So I want to make sure I have the same data to filter by here. I can do it that way, right? Another way I can do that is that I could actually create locations as a actual thing, right? I could create locations as an actual thing that I could be pulling data, creating data for. So I could create a thing that is a location, and I could have this box give me that list, and then when I save my people, right, my clients, it would then add that to it. Then I could have that same list show up here, and it would filter this group for what I'm about to show you. That gets like one more level advanced, and we'll look at that. But firstly, let's just take this group, let's copy and paste it so we have all that same data really quick, and I'll show you what the end result of what we're trying to get to is without adding it and making it more complex with extra things yet. So I now have a repeating group here, and I can change this placeholder, right? So filter list by. Great. So now I know this is going to filter this list. So when I open this, if I have this list filtered set to it, it's not going to pull up anything in the list because it'll say filtered list by, and it doesn't default to anything there. So that's just something to remember if you're trying to set something up like this. You'll have to set a default value. But the first thing we want to do, we want to go in here. This is where I mentioned where you can search. You can go to filter by location. I'm going to have that location equal the drop down filter list by value. Now, this is really cool because this gives us the ability to then dictate what data we're viewing, right? And you can do that in a variety of ways, but this is just a quick way because you can take this small example and you can extrapolate it, right? You can turn it into whatever you need to. If I click preview, now I have it set so I can pull up Comic-Con. Boom, there's all the ones I put in for John. I can also do location 2. Remember we had one for location 2? Boom, there it is. I had none for location 1, so I have none that show up. But say I want to add one for location 1, right? Right. Save. He shows up, but he's not going to show up in Comic-Con. He's not going to show up in location 2. He only shows up in location 1. So it's really cool to be able to see that data and learning how to organize your data and make it accessible by your individual team members, right? They're going to access the system. What if I want to visualize this though, right? What if I want to take that and I want to view how many people are at each one? Let's make a simple graph with a plugin, right? So if I have my visual elements here, there's nothing there for a graph. But if I click install more and do chart, when I spell it right, and there is the simple charts and graphs, or chart element, there it is, from Made by Bubble, right? So click install on that, and then done. And now line and bar chart shows up. So I'm gonna drag that out. I wanna make that small enough. And I wanna do just a simple bar chart right here, right? So I wanna say bar, I want to do it based on my new clients, my data source. I have to do a quick search for data, right? So I need to define, I've defined the type of the data that I'm going to look at, and now I have to, again, define how I want to get that data, and if there's any constrictions I do want to put on that. Great, so for data source, we want to do search for the new clients. We want to group them, create a new grouping by their location. We want it to be exact. We want to do an aggregation for that, meaning that we want to count the number of them that there are by locations, and then click off of that. Sometimes when you when you enter things in for like data source, it'll keep asking you if there's more you want to do, right? So are there more ways you want to filter down? Is there more ways you want to narrow it down? But if you click off to the side here and it turns blue, that means you're good. You have a group that can do stuff with it. It's defined enough for Bubble to extrapolate data and use it. So I click value expression here. I want to go to current point because it's the only one we can do. And I want the current points count, right? Click off of that, blue, we're good. The value label expression here will just be current points location, right? So when I click preview, now I have it showing me each location and the number of people associated. So what's cool with this is now I can tell that I want Jojo, Johnny, Johnny, who is at location 1, and I will click save. He will show up here, and oh, that just changed too. So now I have a 2 here. So it's a way for me to visualize the data, and then I can see it here. So there's a lot of power in this, and there's a lot that we can really use this for inside of a company, right? And this is basic functionality of Bubble, right? So this isn't building out, all of your users. This isn't building out your whole admin suite. This is just entering in some simple data and seeing what we can pull out of it. Because what you can also do is you can enter in a date range here, and then you could have this filtered by a date range that you have entered, right? You can have the data get entered here. You could have this section here that's filterable show up on another page. You could have this chart here showing up on another page. You could set this chart here to be filtered by the location as well. So when you click on the location, it shows the total number of them up here, and it shows the number of people down, the individual people down here. Now there's a lot you can do. This is some pretty basic functionality, but it's enough to really get us started and get that kind of creativity flowing with what do we want to build here? What can we build with these tools? And the whole goal of this course is to help you visualize what Bubble can do very simply and learn to use that to create some complex scenarios.